For this video, I wanted to discuss about the use of underground steroid forums and also the use of underground gear. Now, this has been probably on the scene biggest in the past 15 years alone. I know myself going back on the steroid forums, going back to 2003 era, that it was a big thing to be able to buy anabolic steroids online. People were buying them from all sorts of mediums. Mostly at the time, the particular one would have been through bodybuilding forums. Now, a lot of those forums would have been taken down after the 2007 Operation Raw Deal from the DEA, whenever they targeted uh, a worldwide operation against a lot of the people who ran underground steroid labs. Labs such as British Dragon, Axio, and of course various other steroid forums such as Steroid Superboard, the name one of the big ones that was taken down. Now, the issue of underground steroids has been prominent in the media, in the news for many years now. My personal opinion is that anabolic steroids should be legal. You should be allowed to go and buy them from a proper pharmaceutical company and to be able to buy them in a controlled setting, such as a pharmacy, over the counter. To me, that makes a lot more sense. Then people are able to know that they're getting what they paid for, and that the use of those drugs is going to be controlled. It's going to have the correct medication. It's going to be sterile, and it's going to be safe to use within a moderate dose. Over the past near 15 years, I have seen many underground steroid labs come and go. Many have been nothing more, have been exposed as nothing more than somebody simply ordering powders from China and making the products in their garage or their basement or their kitchen, and then of course selling them as an actual lab on a steroid forum. Is the thought of being scammed. Now, I've seen a lot of people being scammed. I've been scammed myself in the past for a few $100s, nothing major, but I have known people over the years who were scammed for several $1,000s on growth hormone. Unfortunately, with a lot of these scammers, some of them still operate to this day. I'm not going to mention any names, any source names in the video, but some of them do still operate to this day and are selling counterfeit steroids, and they're selling them at human grade prices. Now, unfortunately, what has happened that I've witnessed myself has been that these people have came along, have made a lot of money scamming people, a lot of people not getting their orders, and basically they try to report this issue to the administrators of the particular forums, perhaps the owners, and they're basically just covered up because these steroid labs are giving a large amount of money to people who actually operate the forums. Now, I used to know a lot of people who did operate the forums. I was friends with a lot of people who ran forums. Not going to go into any names or specifics, but I knew a lot of them. Now, a lot of these people wouldn't have been for that particular type of activity, but unfortunately, there are unscrupulous forums out there, which a few of them that I've been checking do still exist. And it's the same old story. People are constantly posting up photos, are constantly asking questions about, is this particular product real? Is this one fake? Now, the simple reality is that if you're finding American pharmaceuticals such as Watson testosterone for sale year round from a European source, I mean, come on, work it out. It's not going to be genuine pharmaceutical Watson testosterone. It's not going to happen. But a lot of people, unfortunately, still fall for the good old scam of it. And then, of course, there's no recourse. You can't go to anybody to get your money back. And you're basically up shit creek without a paddle. Within William Llewellyn's Anabolic Underground's book, he does go on to talk about how pharmaceutical steroids are produced within a proper pharmaceutical company settings and the guidelines that all pharmacists do have to follow in the creation of all medications that are sold within the Western world, within Europe, UK, United States, so forth. Now, one point is that the FDA does require that only sterile and pure ingredients, now pure ingredients would not include ones that are made in China with heavy metal contamination, but ones that are made under extreme conditions by people who actually have PhDs and within multi-million-dollar laboratories. It does mention here that the standards for such assurances are set forth by the United States Pharmacopoeia, USP, which is an independently owned and funded organization comprised mainly of health care professionals, and the USP standards are recognized and used in many other countries, and many of which have established their own organizations. Now, what is very interesting from William Llewellyn's underground book is that he actually did test a lot of steroids. It came from the likes of steroid forms, so forth. The people did not know that drugs were going to be tested. He went and tested them at his own expense, and of course, it's certainly a book that people should check out. If you ever look a lot of underground steroids for sale, you will see a lot of fancy packaging. You will see a lot of terminology printed on the outer packaging, which states such as testosterone propionate, USP, injection only, so forth. You have to remember that these labels are made by somebody who can simply use Photoshop, who knows how to use Illustrator, and has been paid by the laboratory or somebody connected to it to simply produce these labels. Now, that does not in any way, shape, or form have any insight to what's actually in the oil that you're going to inject into your body. There could be anything in there. The vast majority of time, I have used underground steroids myself over the years. I've been fortunate enough that I have not had any major infections. I've had a couple of minor abscesses, but a lot of that could have been from scar tissue, but I have had some. But at the same time, it could have been a lot worse, and you are sort of playing Russian roulette to a certain extent. A lot of people will stick to underground labs that actually have a sort of personal backing to them. They've got a lot of people that you can actually, you can look across and say, okay, well, 3, 4, 500 people have been using this here. There isn't really any major reports of anything major wrong with the gear, etc. And of course, you're going to make an educated decision as an adult on whether or not you want to go ahead and you want to purchase that particular steroid and inject that steroid. But of course, in my personal opinion, I tend to stick to human grade gear. I prefer to know exactly what I'm getting. If you can go to a TRT clinic, etc., then you probably should go down that route. But of course, you're going to be limited in what doses you can get. You're going to be limited in what drugs you can get. You're certainly not going to get Trenbolone or Equipoise, etc., from a TRT clinic. But at the same time, these are decisions that people do have to make in their life if they are going to cross over into using anabolic steroids. I would like to read one excerpt here from William Llewellyn's Underground Anabolics, where it does state here that ingredients that meet USP, BP, and EP standards are ultra pure and could be significantly more costly to produce than those that are made to a lesser purity standard. Now, that is a keynote right there. Now, that would be the same for all medications produced for actual, pharmaceutical use, whether it be in a hospital or whether you go to Walgreens, etc., and get your medication, regardless of what it is it's going to be to those particular standards. So at the very end of the inspection, there will be some tests done to check for any particulate or biological contamination. Now, this is usually done with an in-house chemical analysis equipment such as an HPLC/GC FLIR. No idea what it is. A single vial or bottle of contaminated product is cause for a full investigation of the line and equipment. During such investigation, the entire production lot will be quarantined, depending on the size of the production run and the nature of the contamination. Often, a single unsatisfactory test will be deemed sufficient cause for the destruction of the full production run. United States manufacturers understand the potential losses from lawsuits alone, and of course, they're going to strictly adhere to that. Now, this is where there's a bit of a grey area between buying human grade and buying underground gear as well. That you don't have that. You don't have the safe know-how, the safe knowledge that what you're getting, is basically being made in a garage or a kitchen somewhere. Earlier in the video, I had mentioned about Operation Raw Deal, which happened in September 2007. I remember that very, very well for many reasons. Now, the DEA announced the results of an 18-month investigation into the underground steroid market. And also that operation was dubbed Operation Raw Deal. It was the largest US enforcement action against the illegal steroid trade in history. And it says here, even just having a look at some of the sources, just going over it, that over a series of 4 days, law enforcement officials executed 143 federal search warrants, resulting in 124 arrests. A total of 56 individual underground steroid manufacturing labs were busted. Now, it says here the raids netted 11.4 million dosage units of steroids. I don't know if that'd be 11.4 vials. I imagine that tablets are part of that there as well. And they found 242 kilograms of raw steroid powder. I mean, you think about the amount of money that they would bring alone. A lot of people get into underground steroids. They end up they know how to buy steroids from China. They buy the powders. I mean, it's easy enough to get into it. It's cheap enough to get into it, and you can produce a vial of testosterone for $5, $6, $7, and you could sell it for $60. I mean, that's just how it goes. And that's the simple reality of it. But of course, you start doing that there, you're a drug dealer in the eyes of the government. Now, I think that talking about all this here, about, we've talked about how proper pharmaceutical medications are made. And, we sort of touched upon how underground steroids are made as well. Underground steroids, in my opinion, yeah, they do work. I have used many of them over the years. I'm not exactly 100% against them, but I think that whenever it comes down to overall health of somebody over their lifetime, I think that steroids should be legal, that people should be allowed to walk into a pharmacy and buy them legally over the counter from a proper pharmaceutical company. That's going to save a lot of health problems down the lines for people. And of course, if people are going to abuse steroids, well, there's a different story between heavy abuse and taking small, moderate doses of steroids as well. I would like to draw our attention now to November the 6th, 2005, whenever the Hartford Courant newspaper published an article that examined the quality of anabolic steroids purchased over the internet. Now, for the purpose of the article at the time, the author had ordered 13 drug samples from 3 separate online dealers residing in Poland, Spain, and Moldova, which of course are major areas for underground steroids, especially like Bulgaria and Poland, etc. Now, 12 of the samples were normal stuff that you would get: testosterone, DECA, clenbuterol, etc. And the samples were shipped to Northeast laboratories in the United States for to be analyzed. Now, Northeast, it must be pointed out that they are an accredited analytical lab that does extensive pharmaceutical testing and holds a significant government contract, and they also test for the DEA. Now, it goes on to mention here that out of the 12 steroid samples analyzed, all 12, now keep in point, this is all 12, were either underdosed, overdosed, or contained defiant drugs and or impurities that would not be present in a true human-grade pharmaceutical product. The contaminants in some of the products were highly alarming. For example, the heavy metals lead, tin, and arsenic were found in some of the samples. These metals can accumulate in the body over time, leading to illness, even serious organ damage or cancer. And a variety of non-steroid drugs were also identified in some of these products. They also found one sample contained 2 corticosteroid drugs, which can actually inhibit protein synthesis and stimulate protein catabolism, which is also the opposite of what you want steroids to do. And another tested for the chemical that's used in the manufacture of plastics. It was also found in there. The whole point for the video today has not been to be anti-steroid, because I'm certainly not. I honestly do believe that within bodybuilding, people do need to use steroids to get to a certain limit. Now, I do not agree with people under 18, 21 using steroids, but at the same time, I do believe that if people are going to use anabolic steroids, that they should learn and educate themselves as best as they can, and they should use steroids as safely as possible. Recently, watching a video from Seth Ferosi, and he was saying that once you cross over into taking anabolic steroids, there is no going back, that you are going to cause a certain level of damage to your body. Some people can take it and come off gear, and their body will produce testosterone naturally again. Some of us, it's not that there. Some of us are on TRT for the rest of our lives because we took anabolic steroids for a long time, and our bodies simply cannot produce hormones naturally anymore. Now, that is something that people do need to keep in mind. You have to think about the real consequences of taking anabolic steroids. Yes, it is great to walk around being big and being jacked, and for especially for me as in the powerlifting, etc. It's good to walk around being big and strong, and you feel great and all. But then there will come a time when you are going to be in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and the health problems may start to appear within that stage of your life. It could be many years after you stop training, but eventually you will get to a point in life where it may not have been worth it for you personally. So you do need to educate yourself and think about the outcomes of this here. And of course, you do have to stay very safe and about where you buy your steroids. There are a lot of underground labs out there that simply do have a dangerous product. There's ones out there who are underdosed, have no steroids. There's scammers out there who will take your money and will simply disappear. And of course, there's ones out there who do have perfectly good underground steroids available. You got to do your due diligence and stay safe. And that's really all there is to it, guys. You just got to educate and stay safe.